let's talk about how I overextended a little bit and really underestimated what I was getting myself into. Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire, here to talk to you today about the Shifter class, although this is not the actual class breakdown and guide to making it work because, well, between the usual suspects, work, kids, working late, having to pick things up to help with my wife and the kids, and also just really not entirely understanding what I was getting myself into by taking a look at the Shifter class, I have gotten myself into a situation where I'm not getting everything produced in time. Now, I should clarify, I probably could have gotten something out, but let's just say that the Shifter class isn't all that great. I don't think it's broken, overpowered, far from it. Those of you who are veterans of the First Edition Pathfinder system probably already know, and better than I in this case, because I've only ever had one player make it, and we've only got up to about level 2, level 3, and I only ever had a brief look. Oh, joining me now is my most adorable co-host, Nora, who should be in bed at this time. Would you like to say hello? You're the morning girl now.
Yeah.
Well then, this sounds like an incredibly serious issue. I'm going to have to go take care of this real quick, folks. Be right back. That was my most adorable co-host, Nora, journeyman storyteller, initiate to the 9th circle of lore, and it's a prime example of what I was talking about before with parental duties, responsibilities, and honestly, joys as well, because even though interruptions are interruptions and there are annoyances with it, but at the same time, man, I do take some joy in knowing that my wife and I have been able to foster the kind of environment where she's okay with coming to me for help and telling me she has trouble getting to sleep and that, we might need to do this or that. There are some things that we could probably still work on. No parent and very few parenting styles are perfect. I do think some might be better than others, but at the same time, it's one of those things where if the parents are there and trying, you really shouldn't be passing a whole lot of judgment over them. Just kind of like, shrugging, okay, well, yeah, do what works. I'm getting derailed and off track here. This is part of what I'm talking about in regards to me in particular. We're supposed to be talking about the Shifter class, not me waxing philosophically and haphazardly rambling on about parenting styles. Suffice it to say, plenty of things going on that require my attention go elsewhere, and as much as I love this stuff and I love trying to make sure I stay on top of getting everything cycled out and trying to take requests now, tackling particular builds and archetypes that have come out through recent commenters, I haven't forgotten about those. It's just might take a little bit of time. So we're going to talk about the Shifter class now, but just before we get into that, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Or if you've already gone on ahead and listed yourself on such an incredible roster of legendary heroes, then go on down to hit the like button and share the video far and wide. But now let's actually talk about the Shifter and why I'm having issues with it. For one, I've only ever had one player make a Shifter, and I've not really made a whole lot of use of the class myself, even with NPCs. So my familiarity with it was pretty low, especially in comparison to some of you other veteran DMs out there who have maybe dove more into that class or the companion classes that came out with the book that it came in. So I did not quite understand what I was going to be looking at, and then when I started reading through different forums and build guides, tips, tricks, and suggestions with it, just to kind of get a little bit more of a grounding and try to figure out what would work, Yeah, I kind of got to agree. There's not a lot of options without homebrewing or just flat out going to other archetypes to really make the class work. But I do want to try to see if I can make the base class work. So I'm looking around at several of the different options because the book that it came out in was like 6-7 years ago. So in those 6-7 years, there have been other supplements and other materials that have come out that maybe make this work a little bit better. Maybe there are different ancestry choices, different feats that might feasibly make this class function just that bit better. Maybe some combination of things that might work better. So I am looking into that currently. All this to say that the actual full-on shifter guide is probably going to wait till Saturday, but some of the things I've noticed right up front are, for example, the stat bonuses that you get from your class abilities. They're along the lines of things of competence bonuses and the bonus types that can't stack with stat-enhancing items like belts of strength or anything that grants bonuses to constitution that you might be wearing, because two bonuses of the same type can't stack together. The higher bonus takes priority. So that is very much a problem right there for a class that is built as a martial focused class that is lightly armored with shape-shifting or wild shaping as its central feature. That and the damage scaling, while it is nice that the damage does scale and get some interesting kickers with it to help overcome damage reduction, that is cool, that is useful. That in combination with the fact that you can't really do a lot or as much as other martial classes to boost your stats means that you are going to be a bit left behind. To top it off, you don't have spellcasting, you don't have a whole lot of great class abilities. In fact, the fact that you are a martial class with wild shaping and one of your class abilities working off of wisdom means that you're a bit mad, you're a bit multi-ability dependent, because you're looking at either strength, constitution, and wisdom needing to be effective scores, or dexterity, constitution, and wisdom needing to be effective scores. The only stats that you can really get away with dumpstering are going to be your charisma and intelligence, and I'm not always the biggest fan of putting intelligence down in the dumpster, because classes, even if you only have a handful of class skills, you still want to make sure that you have some of those skills just so that you have some utility. And also, the shifter doesn't have the broadest swathe or collection of class skills to work with and make use of, so you don't have a lot of utility outside of combat, and the fact that you're dumpstering charisma means that you're not great in social encounters or engagements, not traditionally at least, unless you're working in some kind of intimidation angle and your DM's willing to provide bonuses through other means, like context-based, situation-based, like you're visibly transforming into something terrifying in front of an opponent who's helpless, bound, and gagged, and you're scaring them or about to do awful things to them to get information. You're interrogating them, you're putting fear and pain into them to get information out of them. That would be something where I might give a player a bonus to their role. But, or at least lower the difficulty. So, you're not great in social situations, you don't have a lot of skill utility, your abilities don't offer you a whole lot of utility, and also the number of forms you get to shape into your major forms and minor forms are kind of surprisingly limited for a class that's supposed to be shifting into other forms. 5 major forms, and with how they're spread out, it's not all that great. Some of them have some neat abilities to them, but not all of them do, and really just even a cursory glance at some of the archetypes. A few of the archetypes have some issues, Ooze Morph stood out as something that, at least early levels, not super great, but there were others, though, that just really were head and shoulders above. This is actually a class that might be kind of, outclassed by, your kind of baseline fighter, just no archetypes, just the fighter, with the array of feats that they're able to select, and weapon training and armor training, all of that. like just from a straight martial focus kind of standpoint, I think a fighter is probably going to be able to at least keep up with, if not outpace, the shifter. And it's odd because the shifter is supposed to be shape-shifting into these different animal forms, or possibly even mixing certain features or at least abilities out of each of them in order to be this incredible combat-focused machine. And this was supposed to be a class that was readily available and dive into for new players to First Edition Pathfinder, and certainly there is that. Like, looking at it, there's not a whole lot to have to understand, but that's because there's not a whole lot there to work with either, so a new player will understand it, but a new player is also going to be severely crippled and behind in comparison to other players, so they might be disincentivized to take the class, or might just not even enjoy the game. Whereas if they had gone with a different option, even fighter or barbarian, what's the biggest thing you really have to focus on? First thing that stands out: rage, melee combat. Good to go. Sometimes your rage mechanic gives you some other options. We can select and go into those as time goes on. It's not something you have to dump everything all at once on for the new player. There's just a couple of things, first couple of levels to take a look at, and that's it. And the barbarian's still a very effective class overall. So yeah, those are some of my initial thoughts, and that's also part of why I'm behind, plus just general regular life stuff. I'll try to have something else coming out here, but some kind of a short, but even that I can't really guarantee right now. Much as I want to paint, I don't have my painting stuff broken out, and that's been haphazardly scattered as well. So maybe I'll try to come up with another joke that's usable and tailored for fantasy roleplay settings. We'll figure that out. Anyways, I think that's where we're gonna wrap it up for now. Yeah, that's where we're sitting at. So, did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Let me know in your thoughts in the comments down below. Hit those like or dislike buttons and we'll engage in discussion. And remember, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.